Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to lesson 30 in Fiqh as we continue with the preconditions of prayers. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen wa afdal salati wa atammu taslim ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in wa ba'd. So we continue from previous episode where we looked at two of the five conditions. The first one was the taharatul a'dha, the limbs being pure, and obviously the clothes with it, but we mentioned place. However, place is written in number 3. So your limbs, your body should be pure, and the clothes that you wear should be pure, and that was the first condition. The second condition being the covering of the satrul awra, the covering of the private parts, so we know the minimum what we need to cover when we pray. The third thing, which is today's episode, we see is wal wuquf ala makanin tahir, and to be stationary on a pure place, a place that is clean. So body should be clean, clothes should be clean, in a purified state, and as well as the place where you're going to pray. So you may have a masjid like Al-Azhar Al-Sharif, the Grand Mosque of Al-Azhar is in an open courtyard, as you know, a number of masjids, many masajids, these Jamia masjids, these great big masjids that are in Egypt, in Syria, and all these in the Islamic world. They have open courtyards, and sometimes even pigeons can come. All those things that can fly come, and they can do their so filth can come from them. However, that are things that can be overlooked. However, a masjid that's in a roof, in a building, those places should they will always be clean, and we should always remain that we keep it so. So obviously, if in the courtyards of these masajids, we have things that have dropped. It's you should clean it. It's wajib, obligatory to clean that place up. However, if you're praying and then obviously it kind of falls on you and the bird just flies over, and in this open kind of masjids, then these are things that are overlooked. But however, the place that you're going to pray in, the whole time that you're going to be in this place. Now, it says wal wuquf ala makanin tahir, so the place that you're going to be stationary in, praying to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You can be sitting and praying, there are conditions if you're not able to stand, or you can be lying down and praying. That praying area, that should remain clean. That's one of the preconditions for prayers. We then have wal ilm bi dukhul al waqt, and that is to have the knowledge of the entrance of the prayer time. So we know that the prayer time has entered, so Salat al-Dhuhr has entered, and we know it. So we have to have that certainty to a degree of, but we need to be 100% certain that we've taken the steps, we've taken the exercised judgment that is this prayer times. Normally in because Islam is for all in its natural state in all places. Some places there where time watches didn't exist. There will be landmarks, there will be things that happen at that certain time of the day. The birds may be chirping at the time when now Maghrib has said possibly. So whatever they have come to known as the feature for a prayer time entering, that can be that certainty for them. So to have knowledge of the entrance of the prayer time. So what if someone starts to pray without any without even taking that step to determine whether the prayer time is entered? If that person prays and it turns out that in reality he did pray in the prayer time, that prayer is not really accepted. It's not correct, because he never even took that step, that first to exercise judgment. Islam is against negligence, to disregard. He wants you to be a Muslim that is full of in regard of these laws and what is necessary for a Muslim. So a prayer time, he has to have the knowledge about prayer times being the entering, that you start to pray. So this person, he has to have entrance time, know that the entrance of the prayer time has begun, and he prays. So if he prays and it turns out that actually he made that judgment, and he based it on his between 50 to 100% of certainty of and it was correct that that prayer time was in that. That's wonderful. But however, if he took that exercise, that judgment, and it turned out he's actually prayed it before the actual prayer time began, then that will make up a missed prayer that he may have prayed in his lifetime, or it'll just be an optional prayer. It'll just you just get the reward for it's like he prayed an optional prayer, but he still hasn't prayed that actual prayer, so he needs to pray it when the time does begin. However, if he prays it according to his judgment, and it turns out that he's actually prayed it after, so it was Salat al-Asr, and he prayed it actually in Maghrib time, then in that case he has basically prayed qada of that prayer. He hasn't actually prayed the obligatory, the fard of that prayer at that time. He will have to repeat the prayer because obviously he's prayed it, but he's prayed it in the time outside. So there's just that to bear note. So the next thing then we also have, in the fifth and the last thing, in these 5 conditions in Matan Abi Shuja, this ultimate conspectus by this author, he mentions وَإِسْتِقْبَالُ الْقِبْلَةِ, to face the Qibla. So in the Shafi school, we have to have eye contact with the Kaaba. Obviously this is now in the actual Al-Haram Al-Sharif, the sacred sanctuary of where the Kaaba is, and that grand mosque and that grand masjid. So that's why it's in a circle, is that cube, and then you have that whole circular, you can be in any direction around it. You see that every attention should go to that. That's our Qibla, our direction for prayer. So we have to make sure we hit it. If the Kaaba is there and we're suddenly looking the other way, that's not going to be acceptable. So when we're there without any barrier in front of us, yes, we have to be directly looking at the Kaaba with our chest tight. However, if there are barriers, you're back home in the West or wherever you may be, we have to have that general direction of where the Qibla is, exercising judgment again that it is in this direction. There is a time when, as it says in the text, where you choose tark al-Qibla to fi halatain, in 2 conditions, in 2 scenarios, you're able to not actually face the Qibla and pray, and that is fi shiddat al-khawf. This is that prayer of fear. We'll come to that prayer later on when as we're now entering this this whole book of prayers, when the Muslim army is facing the enemies, and it's prayer time. In that kind of situation, prayer is something that has to be prayed and performed. So there is a technique how to pray that prayer of fear. But if the enemy is in the direction of not the Qibla, it'd be nonsense to look away from the enemy and pray when actually the army is coming from that side. So in that kind of scenario, you do not face the Qibla. It's not required. And similarly, when fi nafila fi safar ala rahila, that's the additional, on a mount. So when you're in a travel, when you're traveling and you're praying these optional prayers, these voluntary prayers, not the obligatory prayers, then you don't have to face the Qibla. But it is recommended, it is that you should try to face the Qibla when you start on a mount, whether it's a horse, a camel, in a camel box or elephant box, where you can sit inside, mounted on the actual camel or the elephant, or in a train or a car or any a plane, any of these means and modes of transportation. You try and face the direction of the Qibla and pray. If you're not able to, then that's fine. As it says, it's not in these 2 scenarios you do not have to face the Qibla, but obviously we try our best. We try to, especially at the time of the Takbiratul Ihram at the beginning. So that's for the preconditions before prayer. This is part 2 of that, and inshallah we'll continue next on to the obligatory, the integrals and acts of prayer. Wa sallallahu sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa barik sallam.